Hello guys and welcome to Speedgig. We're here with Hernandez, drummer for Bruno Mars.
Hi guys.
Thank you very much for having us and it's a great pleasure to meet you.
My pleasure.
Hello.
Hi.
So let's get started.
Okay.
So you've been in the business for quite some time. So I read you actually started at the age of 10 playing about 6 shows a week.
Yes.
So how did that interfere with your everyday life and what did your parents think about your career choice?
It interfered with my academics, that's for sure, because I was exposed to music and how fun music is and how much I enjoy it. So I did start to slack in school.
Okay.
On the other part of that, my father, who is also a musician, is the one that put me in that spot at the age of 10 and gave me the opportunity to play drums professionally. So once he saw my school lacking, then he was able to threaten me with, hey, I'll take you right out unless you bring your grades up. So to answer your question, it affected me because I realized even then, that playing in front of an audience on drums is what makes me happy. Even at that age, the applause, the feeling the crowd. And I also had my first experience of feeling like it could be taken away from me.
Cool.
So it was a great experience.
And you played actually like every style of music. So what were main influences back then?
Back then, I listened to a lot of Jeff Porcaro, Toto, Greg Bissonette. Back in the day, of course, The Police and Stuart Copeland was a big influence of mine. And then growing up in Hawaii, there's a lot of reggae influence in the music. So I would listen to a lot of reggae drummers, all of Bob Marley or anybody, Pato Banton, all these other reggae artists. So you'll hear tonight, you guys are going to watch the show, I definitely have a reggae influence in some of my playing. We do a reggae song and I try to play it accurately. So those were my main influences. And actually, Clyde Stubblefield, Buddy Rich, my dad always wanted me to watch, Gene Krupa, and so these are people that my dad had me look at, and then he also showed me other drummers he worked with on the island, on Hawaii, and then I kind of molded into myself playing that gig, and also as a kid I played with cartoons. That's how I learned. I self-taught myself, and I would play with TV shows, and anytime there was a song playing with the television program, I'm playing with it. So that's kind of how I learned.
Nice. So, did you have teachers, or I guess your father taught you a lot?
My father guided me a little bit, and he actually started me in drum lessons, but I kind of lost interest, and I think part of that is, and I'm not proud of that, but part of that is because he allowed me to play this gig at such a young age. I felt like I have this, and I regret not joining school band or doing marching, jazz studies as a child, as a young player, because I already had a professional job.
Yeah.
So I felt I'm okay, and I actually I took one lesson with the guy. He wanted to teach me to read. I stopped that lesson, and to be quite honest with you, I know someone that you guys know, Dave Elich. He's probably one of my first lessons as a mature adult musician.
Okay.
And I sat with him, and then I've sat with him in some of his sheds with other guys, with Chris Coleman and him, and so I'm now starting to I've now opened my eyes and my mind to learning new things, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. So, at what age did you decide to go to LA?
Well, at the age of 18.
Okay.
As soon as I turned 18 and I graduated high school, I said I'm going to move to Los Angeles, because everyone said you have to move to Los Angeles or New York to get into into the music world.
Yeah.
And on Hawaii, it's such a small island. Nobody hears of you. At the time, I had one of the best gigs on the island, where I was able to make money playing drums 6 nights a week. So I felt that I excelled to the best I could be in Hawaii, and I knew if I ever wanted to be in Modern Drummer magazine or Rhythm magazine as they have in the UK, or any other or even on Speedgig, I would need to come out to Los Angeles to get exposure.
Yeah.
So that was about 1995.
Wow.
Yeah,
And did you go to LA right away, or did it take some time?
right away. I
Wow,
packed up
that's
my
nice.
drums, packed up my clothes, and I flew to LA.
Awesome. So, how long did it take you to actually make a living off music? And at what time were you actually able to quit your day job?
Well, when I moved to Los Angeles, in Los Angeles, they had a magazine called The Music Connection. And if you were a musician, you knew to look at this magazine, and if a band was looking for a drummer, you would find, it's like a classified ads for musicians. So I responded
Kind of
to
like Craigslist.
kind of like Craigslist for musicians, which now they probably do it on Craigslist. But anyway, I responded to an ad. It said, signed band seeking drummer. So I was like, okay, and this is about 2 months in since moving to Los Angeles. I respond, I meet with the lead singer of the band. It was a band called Louis Says. They were signed on RCA Records.
Yeah.
I met with him. I got the job with the interview, and he's like, oh yeah, you're the guy. I'm like, you haven't heard me play yet, And he's like, no, I just feel it. I'm gonna fly you out to Portland. They were based in Portland, Oregon, the whole band. I'm like, okay. So he's like, that'll be your audition with the band, but trust me, you got the job. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, sure. So I packed my stuff. He bought me a ticket to Portland, Oregon. I met in their studio, and we jammed. And they're like, oh yeah, you're our drummer. So that was my first gig with a signed act. And we were getting ready. We were starting tour rehearsals. We're getting ready to do a big tour to open up for an artist. Back in the day, you might not know, but his name was Duncan Sheik. And he had a hit, a big hit back then. So we were going to support him and open and do club tour. Well, as things were evolving and we were getting ready, we were just about to get on our buses, and something happened with the business, and the record label had dropped the band. So we got pulled off that tour, and you're talking about, I've been involved with them for 4 or 5 months of preparation, rehearsals. We even started recording the next album, and so they lost the record deal. So there I go. I moved back to Los Angeles, and I'll try to wrap. It's kind of a long story. But I moved back to Los Angeles. I started playing around town because I needed work to make some kind of money. But it's such a big circuit in LA that I needed a regular job.
Yep.
So I gave up. I didn't give up, but I took a job as a security guard in a department store, in a clothing store. And the job was a security guard where you would look for shoplifters, and I started arresting shoplifters, and the police would come and take my shoplifter, and they would read my report, and they say, oh, Eric, you write a very good report. Why don't you just take the police test? And I had never ever thought about a police officer or applying for to be a police officer, especially in Los Angeles. I mean, as a kid, I always liked cops and robbers. But I was like, you know what? I'm having a hard time with music. I can't do music full time and have a roof over my head and food in the fridge. So I decided to take the test, and I ended up, it took a little bit, but I ended up getting that job, and it became a career for me where my drums actually got packed up and left in the garage. So, and then I was a police officer in Los Angeles for about 10 years.
So being a police officer and a musician, those are quite really different things.
Kind of opposite side of the spectrum, yeah.
So, what was it like, for example, on being on both sides, on both ends of the sides?
Well, for the longest time, I'd say being a cop for 10 years, I probably didn't touch drums for about 8.5, 9 years. I mean,
wow.
And you're talking about someone who played since he was 4. I mean, I never lived in a place where I could play my drums. I couldn't afford electronic drums at the time, and then I started getting involved, and I became a police officer.
Okay.
So that was my mindset. I always still tapped on stuff, and I always had drums in my heart, but I never expressed myself. So my brother, who you may know as Bruno Mars. He moved to Los Angeles, and at one point he was staying with me, and he had saved some money and bought me an electronic drum set because he wanted to set up in our living room. So it had me on the electronic drums, he had a keyboard and a guitar. And we started just kind of messing around in the living room. So that kind of lit the fire again for me. I was like, oh man, I miss this, you know? Friends would come over, we would play for them, show off, whatever. And then we got the idea where our friends had watched us do this in my living room, and they said, hey, I just bought a new house. I want to have a housewarming party where you guys perform. So we're like, okay. And they're like, yeah, we'll pay you guys $100 each. Okay. And so we got one of Bruno's friends who was a producer now, but he was a great keyboard player, and we made a group, 3 of us, Bruno on guitar, me on electronic drums, and this keyboard player. And we did this house party. And we tore the roof down on that house. I mean, it was so much fun, and we started getting requests to play other parties. So I went to a pub near my house, and I said, hey, how about if I tell you I can bring a band here, you know, and we can do some kind of, once a week we'll play here, and we'll generate money, and we'll get, you know, a fan base. I'll call my cop friends. So we started playing in this pub, and it turned into every Wednesday night. It was a thing. So now I'm really loving to play drums. I look forward to Wednesday nights. That's when I was a policeman, and then, Wednesday night I had to go do this gig, and now I'm playing drums. So that's the only time I ever did both.
Yeah.
And then Bruno started having more success. He got his record deal, wrote a couple of hit songs. It was time to go promote. He wanted me to go with him. So I took a leave from the police department, and I started playing with him and doing some of the circuit. We started opening for Travie McCoy, and that's when I got the taste of traveling as a tour musician, as a drummer, being on a stage again, and that's when I realized I made the wrong move with the police thing, and this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And since then, this is about 2010 when that started, and now we're here at this arena tonight. So. Sorry, I got a lot of long stories, you know. It's been an interesting ride for me.
And you've always been working together with the brother, or have there been times when you kind of went separate ways?
Since the house party, the pub, yes, we've pretty much always been together since then.
Nice.
When Bruno first started, I had the opportunity to, because it wasn't as busy as it is now, but I started meeting other musicians. So the musical director for Tayo Cruz at the time had asked me to do a few TV shows and a live performance with Tayo Cruz, and I had the time. So I went off and I did about 3 or 4 gigs with Tayo Cruz where I played with him. I did TV shows with him. I did a show with him in New York. And then Bruno's schedule he just started having more and more success, and everything started, okay, we got to fly here, we got to do this television show here, we're going to go to Austria, we're going to go, you know. So he became a worldwide sensation, and I haven't been off the road for 3 years now, and there's really no time for me to accept any other work, because that's how busy the schedule is, which is a blessing.
Yeah, sure.
And when I do have any time off, I want to be with I'm also a family man now. I have a wife, I have a son at home, so any time off, I want to be with them. Now, if I ever have downtime, would I like to get outside and do some other work? Of course. Because that's the only way you can expand your head and your mindset musically, you know, and just to more exposure for yourself.
And can you tell us about your tour life? So are there any routines you have in order to get off the stress of a busy schedule, like yoga or sports?
Actually, for me, when I started this, I was husky, and that was from being a policeman. And then I came into this, and I was exposed to tour life, drinking after shows. Then what happens after you drink? You want to eat. There's pizza on the bus, you eat. So I got really heavy, and I didn't know I was this heavy until I look back now. And I started a workout program I do the insanity workout right now. No weights, just all cardio. There's yoga type stretches involved. I juice now, or I do meal replacement shakes. So I finally altered my diet. I control, my drinking. Occasionally I'll have a cocktail, but it's not every night, drinking as much as I can, because the reality, what I've learned is that in a successful situation as I'm in now, it's a very busy lifestyle, one city to the next, and you can age very quickly if you party too much and you're not watching your health. And also, we went from playing 15-minute shows to 30-minute shows to 45 minutes to now an hour and a half showing, and now I'm in the best shape I've been in a long time. Cardio-wise, my stamina is great, so I do this hour and a half show, no problem. And where before, I remember looking back now, man, I remember playing at the end of the song, I'm breathing hard, and so health is very important for touring, and especially in this caliber, and maintaining good health. And I used to even drink before a show, and then I started to realize I make too many mistakes, I become sloppy. So, you have to, for me, I have to, control what I take into my body, and I like being healthy now, and I love it. And like I said, I look back now at pictures or even TV shows, like, how did I let myself look like that? And I'll never do that again. So, but tour life is great. It's, on the other side of that, it's hard on me because I'm a family man, but thankfully we have technology like our iPads and FaceTime and Skype. I get to talk to my son and my wife daily, which I don't know how musicians did it in the past. It would have been tough for me because they're my life too, and I miss them. The only time I'm okay and I don't miss them, I shouldn't say that, but it's when I'm playing, because then I'm in my world, I'm in my zone. But so tour life, other than that, tour life is great. To be in this caliber, to traveling in nice buses and going to nice cities and seeing Europe and playing arenas full of audiences that want you to be there, it's the best feeling in the world, and I wouldn't trade it.
Sounds like
for
living
anything.
the dream.
Living the dream is exactly it. It's cliche, but it's the truth.
One last question, you're playing. So your credit list is like the who is who of modern pop music. So you've played with, like you said, Tyre Cruz, Nels Barkley, I read. You shared the stage with Rihanna and Sting.
Sting, that was huge for me.
And Travis McCoy. So in the past 3 years, how did all those acts and all these shows in big arenas affect your playing from compared to playing in little houses and pubs?
I definitely started to realize, and I say this all the time, I have to add to that list. Last week I was able to play with Lenny Kravitz. He joined us on stage, and we did one of his songs, Are You Gonna Go My Way? And
with the quarter snare.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's great. For me to be able to say I've done this, Sting, because I told you my influence, Stuart Copeland, The Police. I did a Police song, so I just wanted to play that as best as I could, because it's one of the songs I loved.
Can I ask you which song?
We did Walking on the Moon.
Okay.
If you haven't seen it, you got to watch the Grammy performance, last year's Grammys, and great song. And great, it was actually, I'm proud of that performance. So, and of course, being able to be on stage with Sting, Rihanna, Ziggy Marley, Damian Marley, what an incredible thing. As far as my playing, I think when I came into this in the beginning, and you go from the house to these bigger stages, I used to think that I have to bash and play as hard as I could because that person up in the nosebleed section can't hear my snare or my hi-hat. And I always had that mindset like, oh, it's a big, or festivals, bah, bah, bah. And the reality is, you're injuring your body when you do that. And you need to rely on your sound man, because what happens is yes, it looks cool, but you're losing dynamics.
Yeah.
And dynamics is very important in a show, and especially in a show like this, there's a lot of transitions and a lot of, we go from this, you know, to an R&B, we go from a reggae song to an R&B vibe, and it, you know, you just need to have, or we slow it down to a ballad.
Ah, that's what I read. You don't even use click tracks.
We don't, well, we do use click tracks on some stuff,
Okay.
but majority of the show is not on click track. I
Yeah.
wish it was, because I love click tracks. And, you know, I have great musicians with me that play great stuff, and it's my job to hold it down, but sometimes they entertain me so much, I want to sway with them a little bit because it sounds so cool, but, you know, I stick to my job and I try to be the best meter I can for me, my bass player, and for my, you know, my singer, my brother. But going back to what I was saying, I realized that rely on your sound, man, play tastefully, smooth is fast, and that'll translate out there. I know how to still look like I'm hitting hard, but, you know, I'm not killing myself. And the wear and tear on your body. You know, I'm older now. I'm 37, and
You look way younger.
thank you. Yes, yeah, I moved into LA in 1995. So, you know, it's about your health too. Just like I stretch before a show, I warm up, stretch, and I make sure I'm as loose as I can be. I'm comfortable, because, you know, I want to do this for the rest of my life, and I want to do this till I'm 70, 80 years old. And if I'm bashing every night, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna kill my wrist, carpal tunnel. And I learned how to accept these big stages and these audiences, and, you know, I don't know how else to say it.
You said it all. Okay, once again, it was a great pleasure to meet you and talk to you.
It's my pleasure.
I wish you a nice show tonight,
Thank you.
and hopefully see you once again.
Yes, let me know what you think after the show. And I'm gonna be nervous now because he's a drummer, and now he's watching me.